Millions of peaches, peaches for me. Millions of peaches, peaches for free. Millions of peaches, peaches for me. Millions of peaches, peaches for free. Look out!
I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right. Happy Sunday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show, and you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and every other Sunday. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. And welcome back, guys, to the Sunday show. Sunday show is a little bit different. Obviously, the time is different, but it's just a different whole vibe and mood. Tonight's theme is nothing is permanent. And I want you to hold on to that as we dive into tonight's stories. I think you'll get where I'm going with this. First and foremost, I do want to give shout outs to people in the chat. Shout out to Hanny Halem, who just became a Sabby member. Give Hanny a big whoop, whoop. What's up, Hanny? Shout out to Miguel, says peace. Greetings, William Patrick, who just became a new member. Give William a big whoop, whoop in the house. Shout out to American, says it costs 4 racks to leave church today. Can't wait for the show. Shout out to Nico, says, is Isra heck mad that Signalgate was leaked? Ooh, we're going to get into it. Ooh. Greetings, Randy. Love my Sunday Sabby Sabs. Always have you playing until Due Dissidence starts. Shout out to Hannah, says TYT is going downhill. Greetings, Bill. I agree because she's probably better off not at TYT. That's interesting. Shout out to Dana, says, what happened to Jink and Francesca? We're going to get into that tonight. Greetings, Christopher. I wish I had said this sooner, but Bernie and AOC are counter-revolutionaries. Interesting. Greetings, Brown Bunny. Seated for a Sunday service of Mother Salvati. See you next Tuesday. Body tease. Shout out to Positive Energy. Jink and Francesca to meet again on Pierce Morgan. Greetings, C. Shata. Hey, Sabby. Shout out to Kill Your Grorgers. Bounce, bounce. Hey, yo. More bounce to the ounce. Greetings, Notori sends a wave and love. Shout out to Alan says Francesca claims to be a leftist. She's really just a liberal. Interesting. Shout out to, of course, Eric. Hey, hey, Sunday peeps. Greetings, Kit. Shout out to Kit from Hardlands Media sends alligators. Shout out to you guys. You know, I'm so bad with the emojis, you guys. So I don't know what a lot of these things mean, but shout out to Kit there. Greetings, Jamie says stopping to say hi, Sabby, before I have to tune into the Auburn game. Happy Sunday, everyone. Have a great week. Hey, hey, hey. Greetings, Victor says, who is Francesca? You don't know who okay. You'll find out today. You'll find out. Shout out to Zen Soulful says, happy Sunday all. Greetings. My comrade JB Font says, hello, everyone. Sabs, a family friend of mine brought some roasted turkey wings, lobster mac and cheese, collard greens, and white rice. I'm enjoying myself while watching my homie deliver the news. Love all. Sounds yummy. Sounds quite Thanksgiving-like over there, JB. Greetings, Trell says, what's up, all? Victor from TYT. Shout out to Robbie says, best move. Why would Fran want to stay with TYT? I would say thank you, Jink. Interesting. Shout out to William says, sup. And greetings, CBC voter says, happy Sunday, Sabby Sabs. Hello. Shout out to anything for Selena. Francesca is a cartoon caricature of a leftist. Girl is a nut. Interesting. Mixture of comments here about that particular situation. Shout out to Soul says, hi, Sabby. Happy Sunday. Greetings, Muhammad says, hi. Hey, Muhammad. Shout out to Thon says, yo, yo, yo. What's up, Sabby and fam? And greetings, Anthony says, what the hell is going on over at TYT? We'll get into all of that, guys. I have so much to say. So much to say. Greetings, Kimmin says, love Sabby. Shank out to Roger. Shout out, shank out. Don't shank Roger. Shout out to Roger says, I want some of that soul food JB font. And greetings, Brent says, Franny is far left. Oh my God, the chat is crazy. Shout out to Khalif says, hello, Sabby. All right. We have so much to get into, guys. Jesus, it's Sunday, so it's a crazy day. A different type of show. So let's go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. Really do appreciate you, fam. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories. Ultimate, Sabinators. Don't forget about those Sabsters, okay? Don't forget about those guys. And of course, we also have Sabbies, the hostesses with the mostesses. And of course, we also have members. Thank you guys so much for your support. You guys can see their names featured here, and you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on that ticker. That's right. And I want to give a special shout out to new Sabby patrons. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for Wild Rose. I like that. That kind of sounds like the name of a band. Wild Rose. Thank you. Thank you guys so much. We have so much to get into tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Let me go ahead and pull up my thing here. It's been an interesting weekend. I didn't think I'd have this much to discuss on Sunday, but we have a lot to get into. Let's go ahead and go to that thumbnail so you can see what we are going to discuss tonight. Bam, let's dive in. Tonight, we are discussing TYT fires contributor. That is a Cenk Uygur there in the blue rectangle. And next to him is Francesca Fiorentini. who was a TYT contributor. We're going to get into all of that. People are asking what is going on, like what's happening over there. We're also going to dive into Bill Gates. He is warning workers. This is a big heads up for all of us that are workers, that are part of the working class. Bill Gates is saying the quiet part just out in the open now about what is to come within the next 10 years. So get prepared for that. We're also going to discuss Stephen A. Smith shames students. Jesus Christ. Oh, boy, boy, boy. Stephen A. Smith is not happy. He has some things to say about canceling student loan debt. And I think you guys know how I feel about that issue in particular. It's not just personal, it's a real reality. We're going to get into that. We're also going to discuss JD Vance cringe demand. Jesus Christ. This whole exploration here with Greenland, in my opinion, has gotten out of control. We're going to get into that. I don't think the U.S. should be trying to acquire anything, and that the U.S. should be trying to take care of the American people. And last but not least, this happened over the weekend. We have an update about Signalgate. It appears that Israel is now voicing their frustration about the Signalgate leak. And that is Pete Hegseth there in that rectangle. And we're going to get into whether or not people feel that Pete Hegseth should even continue to stay in that position. So it's a lot of things that are happening, folks. Signalgate is not over. As you can see, it's still continuing. And we have quite a bit to discuss. Tonight's theme is nothing is permanent. Nothing. Everything is temporary. And I want you to hold on to that message. And I want you to realize that when we get into each story, because what you have today, what the situation is today, is not necessarily going to be the situation tomorrow. That is not necessarily going to be forever. And we're going to start off with the first story, because this is the one that really yikes. So this whole Signalgate fiasco has many people asking, and even people on the right I've seen on social media are asking this question: should someone be fired because of the information that was leaked? Because there was a leak, period, because they were discussing this over Signal. For those who are not aware, Signal is a text messaging platform similar to WhatsApp. And yes, I have said this over and over again. These alternative text messaging platforms are not safe. And some people say that they are. I don't think they are. People have been known to be able to hack into those messaging platforms. So you think what you're saying on there is private and secure. It is not. I've said the same thing about Telegram. People also think that these Telegram groups are private. No, people have still been able to get in there as well. So Signalgate is still an issue. And something happened over the weekend. Now it has been confirmed that Israel is angry at the Trump administration because of the Signalgate leak. Now, you may be wondering, why would they care? Well, let's remember what they were discussing. Shout out to Caitlin Johnstone for this one. She was talking to Tulsi Gabbard. I'll show you in just a second. This is one of the chats from Signalgate. Mike Waltz and TG, Tulsi Gabbard. Mike Waltz, typing too fast. The first target, their top missile guy. We had positive ID of him walking into his girlfriend's building, and now it's collapsed. It's now collapsed. Tulsi Gabbard says, great work and effects. So to make a long story short here, one target that they were seeking walks into a building, and they were willing to collapse an entire building of people to get that one target. They were willing to take out all of those civilians to get that one target. So yes, a lot of civilians in Yemen have been killed, including children. So this is all over again, right? So that's some of the information that was leaked as a part of Signalgate, that the U.S. government is brutal as hell, that the U.S. government is willing to kill all these civilians just to get one target. Didn't Julian Assange reveal this years ago? Didn't Julian Assange explain to you that the goal is not necessarily to win a war, but to keep a continuous war and to launder money, thus supporting the military industrial complex, thus supporting Israel and what Israel wants to happen here? Julian Assange warned you that the US government was killing civilians. That's what was revealed in the videos that he showed. That's why they locked him up, because they didn't want that to get out. The US government was committing war crimes. This is a war crime. You can't take out a whole building of civilians to get one person. And here's the Signalgate message confirming that. Now, Caitlin Johnstone, who was she referring to? She was referring to Tulsi Gabbard here. This statement that Tulsi Gabbard made in all her craziness. President Trump is the president of peace. He ended bloodshed across the world and will deliver lasting peace in the Middle East. So that's who Caitlin Johnstone is responding to. And she's correct, because what Tulsi Gabbard is saying there is absolutely a lie. How are you the person of peace and you're killing all these damn people? Now, I tried to warn people about this. I tried to tell people that both Kamala and Trump were going to be a part of this war machine. And people are like, no, Trump's going to be the peace guy, pro-peace, as if all of those things that happened under his first presidency are just erased from everyone's memories, as if he didn't take out Soleimani, as if he didn't bomb Syria. All of a sudden, people forgot. And now you see this is happening. But to the point, Israel is now angry. Israeli officials angered by signal leak on Yemen intel involving Trump official report here. So does everybody see what's coming out now? It's all coming out, ladies and gentlemen. I told you we would get more information soon. I was going to make it bigger, but sorry, guys. I think that's as large as it goes here. Israeli officials are angry over a signal chat leak that exposed sensitive intelligence Israel shared with the U.S. from a human source in Yemen, CBS News reported on Friday. On Tuesday, CBS News released unclassified internal documents from a National Security Council bulletin highlighting weaknesses in using the Signal app despite its encryption. The bulletin had been broadly circulated to NSC staff a month before the U.S. National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz, set up the Signal chat group. So, once again, he was warned before he even set up the Signal chat group. This is why I was trying to tell people they are not going to be able to argue their way out of this one. And I am even seeing conservatives speak out on social media asking for either the firing of Mike Waltz or the firing of Pete Hegseth. So this is not just liberals that are complaining about this. Let's go on. The leak of the Signal chat messages angered Israeli officials. This is according to anonymous sources, as it compromised a human intelligence source they had shared with the U.S. for targeting, despite the airstrike effectiveness remaining intact. According to a senior American intelligence official and a source familiar with Israel's frustration, despite the publication's caution in releasing the information, it compromised a human source who had provided intelligence for Israel, who then shared it with the U.S. for targeting. Let me break this down for people, okay? Long story short, this official, who was, I guess, private, this official that was representing Israel shared information with the Trump administration that the target that they were seeking was in this building. Israel's really upset because what this shows is that Israel was telling the U.S. government, take them out. I don't care if there are civilians in that building. Take the building down. Once again, showing you who is really in charge. It's not Tulsi Gabbard. It's not Mike Waltz. It's Israel. That's why they're angry, because this information is now leaked. That's a war crime. Let's continue. Earlier this month, there was a plan to use U.S. military planes and drones to strike targets in Yemen. These operations were supposed to protect shipping routes and target Houthi terrorists who were a threat to Israel. Israel provided information to help target the Iranian-backed Houthis, but the chat set up by Waltz was mistakenly made public, compromising the information. Waltz accidentally added the Atlantic's editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg, to the group chat. Now, for those who didn't see my initial coverage of Signalgate, Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor-in-chief at The Atlantic, isn't just a journalist. Jeffrey Goldberg was a prison guard in Israel, and he volunteered to serve with the IDF. So Jeffrey Goldberg, obviously in his best, is going to try to do what he can to protect Israel. So the information that he leaked, that was the information that he leaked. He was able to choose what he was going to present. So if it's something that's damning towards Israel, probably not going to present that. But you need to know who he really is. So it goes on here. This is crazy stuff, man. This country is crazy. The conversations between high-ranking U.S. officials, including Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and members of National Security Council. They discussed specific military actions, including airstrikes using planes and drones, which I showed you last time on the show. U.S. intelligence officials, including the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, and CIA Director John Ratcliffe, tested that no classified information was shared in the chat. However, they acknowledged that the information was still sensitive. Still, experts say that even unclassified information like this should not be shared through unsecured methods like the Signal app. And it goes on to talk about the hearing that happened. We played that last time on the show. So Israel is really pissed because it implicates Israel. It shows everybody Israel told the U.S. government to kill all these civilians to get one person. That's what they've been doing. This is what we were telling you. This is what I told you was happening under Biden and Kamala. This is what I told you would still happen, also happen under the Trump administration, even though people wanted to believe otherwise. Who funds you runs you. So if you're taking money from AIPAC and other Zionist lobbyist groups, what do you expect these politicians to do? What do you think they're going to do? They're going to serve Israel. But now Israel's angry. And there's more. Because now apparently Pete Hegseth's wife may have been a part of one of these meetings. Again, this is not secure. Listen to this.
Arriving in Japan for a World War II memorial service today, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth had no comment about the latest controversy he's facing.
Mr. Secretary, does your wife attend meetings with sensitive info? Mr. Secretary, does your wife have a security clearance?
Hegseth had already been facing scrutiny over the messages he sent in the Signal group chat about the U.S. strike on Houthi rebels that inadvertently included journalist Jeffrey Goldberg. Now questions for the Pentagon leader are growing over a report in the Wall Street Journal that Hegseth brought his wife to 2 meetings with foreign military counterparts where sensitive information was discussed, according to multiple people who were present or had knowledge of the discussions. Back in early March, cameras captured Jennifer Hegseth entering the room of a bilateral meeting with the United Kingdom's Secretary of Defense.
That's not secure. That's not secure. Like, I don't know what to tell people, but that is not okay. That's not okay. And I can tell you this right now, if that would have been happening under the Biden administration, conservatives will call it out. It's happening under the Trump administration. Liberals are calling it out, but everyone should be calling it out. Now, some conservatives are saying that Pete Hegseth needs to be fired. Some conservatives are saying that Mike Waltz needs to be fired. But the reality is right and wrong is wrong. And as I was telling you, nothing is permanent. These positions aren't permanent. Don't forget during Donald Trump's first administration, don't forget he fired some of the people that he hired. So it's not like he can't replace these people. It's not like he can't get rid of Pete. He can't get rid of Mike Waltz and replace them with other people. And then you go back to the hearings to confirm Hegseth and Gabbard, and there were certain politicians that had reservations about them. And then Signalgate is leaked here. And that only confirms the reservations that they had about them. This is private information. This is not secure. You can't just bring your wife up in here. Let's go on. What a mess.
The Pentagon released a photo showing her seated in the room. That meeting coming just a day after the United States said it was ending intelligence sharing with Ukraine. Neither the White House nor the Pentagon have responded to requests for comment about why Jennifer Hexeth may have attended sensitive meetings or what her level of security clearance is. Jose?
Yamiche Alcindor in West Palm Beach, Florida. Thank you. Let's bring in the moderator of NBC's Meet the Press, Kristen Welker. Kristen, you just spoke to President Trump about the controversy surrounding Walton Hegseth's group chat on Signal. What did he tell you?
Jose, in a phone interview that lasted just over 10 minutes, President Trump was defiant in defending Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, who played key roles in that Signal text chain in which attack plans were discussed. The president calling the matter fake news and arguing the strikes against the Houthi rebels in Yemen were successful. Now, notably, Mr. Trump said he had read the group text exchange. I pressed the president about reports that he'd been advised to fire Mike Waltz. He responded, "I don't fire people because of fake news and because of witch hunts." Jose?
And Kristen, you also asked the president about tariffs, those already in place and those about to take effect. What were your key takeaways?
Jose, I asked President Trump if the 25% tariffs he just announced on cars and auto parts are permanent. His response was absolutely they're permanent. And I pressed him on reports he urged auto CEOs not to raise prices. The president telling me, quote, "No, I never said that. I couldn't care less if they raise prices because people are going to start buying American-made cars." And Jose, I asked the president about his desire to annex Greenland. Mr. Trump saying there's a good possibility it could be done without military force, but added, "I don't take anything off the table."
This is insane. And to go along with all of this, I just saw this. I'll have to cover this in a separate clip. Trump has also said that he hopes to have an agreement with Iran, but if he doesn't rule out bombing Iran. This is insane. And as I said before, all these people are like, oh, this person's pro-peace, this person's pro that. None of these people are pro-peace when they're aligned with AIPAC. That means they're going to do the bidding for Israel. They're going to do what Israel wants. That's what they pay you for. That's what Miriam Adelson's money is for. They're not going to give you money to go against them. They give you money to go along with them. That's how it works. That's why you have to get corporate money out of electoral politics. So nothing is permanent. Any of these people can be replaced. Pete Hegseth can be replaced. Mike Waltz can be replaced. Tulsi Gabbard can also be replaced. But people have to honestly sit here and admit, maybe some of these people aren't who you thought they were. And maybe some of us that tried to warn you, maybe next time you'll listen. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat. Thank you. Thank you for the super sticker, Merlin Evans. Thank you so much. Hey. JB says, we warned people multiple times. Some in independent media were touting Trump as a peace candidate. Now we see that's false. Many of us knew, so others should have as well. What are they hiding? Kinman says, replace Tulsi. It's an absolute nightmare, you guys. Like, I don't know. It's an absolute nightmare. Terrell says, Sabby Sabs, I kept warning them, Sabby, and they didn't listen. Yeah, these people are not heroes. And none of these politicians are coming to save you. But at the end of the day, this is a security issue. And you should call it out regardless which party is in power, period. All right. We're going to hop on to the next story. Yeah, Kimmy's right. Our entire government needs to be exactly. These people are crazy. Like, it's just insane. It gets crazier by the minute, though. Wait till you hear about this next story. And I tell you guys, get ready. Workers, get ready. People, get ready. Because I've been warning people for quite some time. You got to get ready. And with this next story, I think you'll see why. So billionaires have been making decisions for a long time. It's not new. They have been making decisions, believe it or not, with your salary, how much you can get paid, whether or not we increase the minimum wage. They're involved in all of these things. They don't have to sit in office for these things to happen. And one of the things that I've been encouraging people to do, because like I said before, these politicians are not going to save you. Yes, there is some politics that needs to be played. There is legislation that does need to pass and legislation that probably should not pass. Totally understand that. But at the end of the day, it really is the 99% of us against the billionaire class. Don't believe me? I want you to see this announcement that just came from Bill Gates. Bill Gates says that AI will replace doctors, teachers within 10 years and claims humans won't be needed for most things. Before we get into the rest of the article, let's just go ahead and pause there and jump right in. What have I been telling you? He's given a timeline now. Before, I didn't see a timeline. Now I'm seeing 10 years. Because this is what I was trying to explain to people. As they have been developing AI, yeah, some of these jobs are going to go because they won't need you anymore. How many of you know someone who's a teacher? How many of you know someone who's in college right now that's majoring in education to become a teacher? Because if you start college this year, 2025 in the fall, and your major is education, and you finish in 4 years, which some don't, you don't have that long. I mean, you just really don't. You don't. And so because of that, even doctors, we're looking at people who work in certain professions that within 10 years may not have a job, which means they may have to do something else for work, which means they may not make the same salary that they're making now. Everyone needs to listen up because this also applies to benefits as well. Because if you're not working that job, that means you're not going to get the same benefits that you're getting. Your health insurance is attached to your job. Why do you guys keep thinking, I keep saying we need universal health care in this country? You lose your job, you lose your health care. Let's go further. Very important, folks. Bill Gates predicted that advancement in artificial intelligence will significantly reduce humanity's role in many traditional tasks such as medicine and education. And the seismic shift could happen in less than 10 years. During a recent interview with comedian Jimmy Fallon on NBC's The Tonight Show, the Microsoft co-founder described a future where humans are no longer necessary for most things because AI technology will readily perform tasks that currently require specialized human skills. Today's expertise in fields such as medicine and education remain rare, Gates said, adding that those areas depend on a great doctor or a great teacher. Let's go on here again. This is Bill Gates. By the way, just to remind you again, Bill Gates is a billionaire. When this shift happens, and it is going to happen at some point, Bill Gates is not going to have to worry. He's a billionaire. He has a bunker. He's also been stealing water from people. What do you guys think these people have been preparing for? All of these billionaires that have bunkers, what do you think they're preparing for? Why do you guys think they don't want to increase the minimum wage? Why do you think we've gone, almost a decade, over a decade without increasing the minimum wage? Think about that for a second. You guys have already seen some of this. If you go to a fast food restaurant, if you go to some of the retail stores, some of the cashiers have been replaced by self-checkout. The Kohl's that I go to is replaced by self-checkout. I took a video of myself doing the activities. where I had to check myself out. I even had to remove the sensor. They have the machine to remove the sensor from the clothes that you're buying. What do you guys say? They showing you what's coming. They just been showing you in a slower way. If they have machines that can do these jobs, they won't need us to do those jobs. Now, that means if we're not doing the job, we're not going to receive the salary for doing that job, right? So that means that we would need a universal basic income. But I'm going to forewarn you. I don't believe even if they did a UBI, it would be enough to live off of. What is coming? Let's go on. This is why I tell people to get ready. This is why I tell people to get prepared. But over the next decade, great medical advice and great tutoring will become free and commonplace, Gates said. Gates further elaborated on this vision of a new era he terms free intelligence in a conversation last month with Arthur Brooks, a Harvard professor known for his research on happiness. AI technology will increasingly permeate daily life, revolutionizing areas from healthcare and diagnosis to education, with AI tutors becoming broadly available and the mogul predicted. So listen to this. Even right now, you can look up legal information online, right? There is already online tutoring available. And even some of the YouTube videos, if you're like me and you like to watch movies, and after you watch the movie, you go to YouTube to watch an ending explained video. I love watching those, right? Now I'm noticing when I search the algorithm, instead of seeing these creators who sit down and do an actual movie review or ending explained, the videos that are force fed to me now are the ones that is just AI talking. And you don't know until you click on it and you start to hear them talking. It's just like, oh, this is AI. Give me a real person. The changes are already happening. So think about your job and ask yourself, can your job be done by a machine? And if it can, then what? You see, this is something that a politician isn't fixing. This is something that, and as much as people are going around, talking about resist and fight back, and I support resisting against billionaires, I support that 100%. But I think people need to understand something here. AI isn't stopping. I don't see anybody putting the brakes on AI and saying, we're not going to do this anymore. It's continuing. So if AI is continuing, it's only going to increase, and they're going to develop more things with AI. What is going to happen to everyone's jobs? And that's what I want people to ask. Let's continue. It's very profound and even a little bit scary because it's happening very quickly and there is no upper bound, Gates told Brooks. There is considerable debate about the future roles humans will play in an AI-driven society. So they are debating how we're going to live our lives. Everyone should have a problem with this. While some analysts suggest AI will primarily help mankind become more productive and potentially create new economic opportunities and employment, others express concern about job stability. And this is Bill Gates here with Jimmy Fallon on the Tonight Show, where they were having this conversation. So I want to ask you guys this question. What about healthcare? What about benefits? If we don't have universal healthcare, how is everybody people really need to think about this. Because doctors have a pretty high salary. Some of them have a lot of student loans too, so keep that in mind. But doctors have a pretty high salary. Teachers, not so much. So just think about that. AI replacing those particular jobs. Think about the show Star Trek Next Generation. I don't know if everybody's ever seen that show. I've seen that show. And Star Trek Next Generation maybe should have been our warning. Because if you watch Star Trek, Next Generation, you'll see that even in that show, by the way, this show came out in the 90s. Even in Star Trek Next Generation, there wasn't a cook. There wasn't a chef. If they wanted food, they had a machine that they could just go to the machine and press the button, type, basically put what they want, and the machine would just create the food. And there's your food. You want a chicken sandwich, you go to the machine, you just press, there's your chicken sandwich. People weren't cooking anymore. For some reason, there still was a bartender, and that was Whoopi Goldberg. I don't know that about. Because if you had a machine that create food, you probably had a machine that just could make your drink for you too. But anyway, but yeah, the replicator. Thank you, Eric. The replicator. Right. So Star Trek Next Generation was ahead of its time. They were already trying to show you like what could be possible. What about Dr. Beverly Crusher? Dr. Beverly Crusher wasn't like a typical doctor today. She had a machine that she could just use to scan your body to tell you what the diagnosis was. They were ahead of it. It goes on to say here that Microsoft AI CEO Mustafa Suleyman believes that the transformation of work by AI will have a hugely destabilizing impact. In his 2023 book, The Coming Wave, Suleyman writes, these tools will only temporarily augment human intelligence. They will make us smarter and more efficient for a time and will unlock enormous amounts of economic growth, but they are fundamentally labor replacing. Despite acknowledging potential disruptions, Gates remains optimistic about AI's positive contributions, including breakthroughs in medical treatments, climate solutions, and widespread education. So they're not answering, Gates isn't answering this question. What are those people going to do when AI replaces their jobs? What are they going to do? Everybody start putting things together here. A couple years ago, we just had a pandemic. A lot of people died. Now Bill Gates is telling you about 10 years, AI is going to replace doctors and teachers. What are all those people going to do if they don't have jobs? Where are they going to go? Well, what are they going to do? Are they going to pay these people? What's going to happen? They're not even talking about this. They're just telling you who's going to be replaced and who's going to lose their job, but they're not telling you any type of transition that is going to happen for those people after they lose their job. People need to have a problem with that. So you can see here, today's expertise in fields such as medicine and education remain rare, Gates said, adding that those areas depend on a great doctor or a great teacher. So you can see what they're trying to do. I'm just telling you guys, man, nonetheless, he recognizes certain activities will always remain human specific. There will be some things we reserve for ourselves. So I told you guys this before. Last year, Elon Musk made a statement in an interview, and he said that AI is going to replace most of the jobs. And he said, like, people will just have to find something else to do. But they don't have a plan. So you have Bill Gates, you have Elon Musk, you have these tech bro billionaires that are just basically playing with our lives. And no one has put a stop to it. No one. None of these politicians have stopped it. People say Ro Khanna went to a fundraiser at David Sacks' home. He's another tech billionaire. Stop. When this happens, they will be ready. We will not. Now, we talk about wealth disparity. We talk about the class issue in this country. I want to show you something. This came out recently. There's no such thing as middle class in Massachusetts. No such thing. And it's not just Massachusetts, as you guys know. This is happening all across the country. So if the middle class is virtually being wiped out, and Bill Gates is telling you that AI is going to take doctor positions and teacher positions basically out of the equation. What the hell is going to happen to the working class? It's a big one. Again, everyone check this out. There's no middle class. There are two classes in the US, oligarchy and the 99%. This is from Ribert of Dedham. Tony from Carlisle offered more specifics. If you can live on your savings and investments without selling your labor, you are upper class. If not, you are working class. The middle class is a fiction created to divide the working class against itself. Everyone take a snapshot of this one. And I think this is a good way of defining this. If you're trying to figure out whether or not you're working class or if you're middle class, some people that I hear people say that they're middle class, but they're not really middle class. Because if you think about what he just said, this is important. If you can live on your savings and investments without selling your labor, you are upper class. If not, you are working class. The middle class is a fiction created to divide the working class against itself. So I don't know about you guys, but I don't know many people, very few. I don't know anybody, actually, maybe one, that can live on their savings and investments. Everyone else I know have to work. And I don't know about you guys. Everyone you know, do they have to work? Most people I know have to work. I don't really know people that can do this. Even people that are retired, that have been living off of their Social Security, have been known to go get a job as a greeter at Walmart because things getting tight. So pass this on to your friends, guys. I'm telling you guys, if you have a friend that is saying they're middle class, these people are not middle class. The majority of us are working class. Because at one point when we had a middle class in this country, we don't have that anymore. Delthea says the middle class has always been a misnomer with as many definitions as there are people using the term. Yeah, and I think he put it such a good point here where he said it's trying to divide the working class against itself. Two classes. And then there is Leanne from Malden who said there's now the homeless, the poor, the working poor. Let me highlight this one. Sorry. There's now the homeless, the poor, the working poor, the rich, and the ultra wealthy. And unless you're in one of those last two groups, you're probably depressed right now. This is important. Homeless, and the homelessness rate has been increasing, right, over the years. The poor, the working poor, the rich, and the ultra wealthy. How many of you in the chat can say you're ultra wealthy? Probably none of you, right? That would be like the Bill Gates. The rich, I would say, would be like the millionaires, multimillionaires. The majority of us are working poor. Then there's the poor, and then homeless. So when we look at this and we listen to what Bill Gates just said about AI replacing those jobs, people need to start asking, where are we all going to be in 10 years? And I got to say something else too, and you guys can let me know how you feel about this. I really believe that this is part of the reason why the minimum wage has not increased in over a decade. Part of the reason why they don't want to give everybody health care. Not the only reason. I told you part of it has to do with black people. They didn't want black people to have it. But I really feel like they knew this was coming. And this is why the Democratic Party is no longer the party of the working class, because they knew that AI was on the rise and that some of these jobs were going to be replaced. Basically, they knew that some of us would just be replaced. If we are in a position where it's AI taking our job and we have no say in that, no choice in the matter, we will then basically become beggars. And you know what they say, beggars can't be choosers, right? You can't be choosy, which means we'll take whatever we're given. Why go through this? Why go through all this to increase the minimum wage? Why give everybody health care if you know that some of these jobs aren't going to exist anyway? I always advise people to save as much as you can. I know everybody can't, but that is a red flag, because before there was no timeline. Now there's a timeline. 10 years, he said. That's not far away. Nothing is permanent, even your job. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Michael. These politicians won't save you is a t-shirt, Sabs. That's a good idea, Michael. That's a good t-shirt idea. Shout out to Jasmine Harrell, who's been a member for 16 months. The only people replacing us are billionaires. AI can't do what we do, but CEOs don't care. When they bring us back, be assured our pay will be trash. There you go. Thank you. Where's the love? Beyond Burger, the replicator. There you go. Thank you. None of your business. There is no job that a robot can't do. Program 2. Thank you, Jasmine. Sad thing about this is that this so-called AI is just an algorithm. It's all a hustle, and it's all causing decline in critical thinking in people. We will have no UBI. They want us to die. So Jasmine believes that it's basically going to be survival of the fittest. Thank you, Trash Panda. I'm the working poor. Thank you, Jules. T. Carlson said he would bomb all the data centers. Thank you, Blueser. Also, why they push so hard for cop cities? I'm telling you guys, they know what's coming. And I think a lot of these senators know what's coming too. That's why they just like, what are we, we don't have to give them health care. We don't have to increase the minimum wage. Thank you. None of your business. Robots will replace every human job, including the corporate oligarchs. Robots can act, drive, program, teach. Plumbers, electricians too. The Oracle says Sabby AI is part and parcel to the evolution of the plantation nation. There you go. We're asking for too many things. We're asking for benefits. We're asking for raises. We're asking to be a part of a union. So forget you guys. We're just going to replace you with robots. Thank you, Skylar. U.S. capitalism has been trying to get back to free labor ever since the 13th Amendment ended slavery. That's what is driving AI. Bingo. Good one, Skylar. There you go. And thank you, JJ. Hey, Sabby, I just logged on the live. Hello and welcome, JJ. Okay. If you haven't had a chance to do so, smash that like button, fam. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share like a Care Bear. We're now moving on to our next story. This one is not dark like that one, but I did have to tell you guys about that. Again, the theme is nothing is permanent. And that applies to this situation as well. So, oh boy. Let me give the backdrop for this first. There's a video that's circulating around on X of Stephen A. Smith, basically criticizing the idea of canceling student loan debt. But I think people need to hear the backdrop of where that conversation comes from. It comes from a video of Stephen A. Smith basically kind of venting a bit here towards the people that are calling him a MAGA mouthpiece because he interviewed Ben Shapiro, he interviewed Candace Owens. He goes on to Fox News and speaks to Sean Hannity every now and then. From what I understand, they are friends in real life, according to Stephen A. Smith. And so he had some things to say. And that's where that conversation comes from, this statement from Stephen A. Smith where he says that he's against canceling student debt. And I think we need to dive into that as well, because I do think that this is a generational issue. And I want to show you what Stephen A. Smith had that the rest of us that were millennials or Gen Z did not have. So let's go ahead and dive into the conversation. Again, it's Stephen A. Smith. He's upset that MSNBC called him a MAGA mouthpiece. And that's where the student debt conversation comes in. Listen to this.
Point out some of the things that I said. Okay. Primarily, I have voted Democrat. This is you quoting me in your blog. I have voted Democrat throughout my life, but I'm utterly disgusted with what I'm seeing. Why shouldn't I be? Why aren't you, Jahan? Did you see what the Democrats did leading into the election? Did you see how Kamala Harris went on national television and said she doesn't really see anything differently that she would do compared to what Joe Biden was doing? Did you see Obama deport more illegal immigrants in this country than even Donald Trump did during his tenure as president? But Joe Biden take office and literally open the borders? Did you see crime taking place in the street? Did you see people getting arrested and getting let out of jail the same day? Do you see what's happening in California now, where there's reports that the state of California is running low on money and literally Medicare is jeopardized because of over $1 billion that was spent on illegal immigrants? Did you see their state legislature pass legislation protecting migrants and illegal immigrants from federal enforcement by the Trump administration? We're paying attention. We're seeing what's going on. Everybody's not going to feel what you feel. The thing is, you ask the question and you listen. But in the end, this side won. When I said that they engaged in lawfare, you're damn right I brought it up. Do you know why I brought it up, Jahan? Mr. Jahan Jones, do you know why I brought it up? I brought it up because I'm ticked off that's what they thought it would take in order to beat Trump. A, because it didn't work, and B, where's your bullpen?
So I don't know what he's wearing. I'm seeing a number of people in the chat asking, what is he wearing? Matule says casual Fridays. I don't know. But what he's complaining about here is that he felt as though that he was giving an alarm to the Democratic Party that they needed to have a bullpen, that they needed to be ready to beat Donald Trump. And now, I guess because he said that, now MSNBC, there was a journalist who wrote this hit piece about Stephen A. Smith, basically saying that he's a MAGA mouthpiece because he is talking to both sides, right? So like he has interviewed Dr. Cornel West has been on the show. Cory Booker was also on his show. I don't know if a lot of people realize that. Andrew Cuomo was on his show. So he's brought on Democrats and he's brought on Republicans. But I think that, again, there's a lot of, if you bring on a conservative and you don't knock them out or you don't scream at them and take them down or whatever, then yes, they're going to call you a MAGA mouthpiece, right? But also there's some that'll still call you that just for talking to a conservative, just for bringing them on the show, period. So I think they want Stephen A. Smith, especially considering that he is a Black man, they expect him to just take the side of the Democrats and to just talk to the Democrat politicians and people who are liberals, basically, right? But he's not, and I want to be very clear about this. As I've said this before, Stephen A. Smith has been critical of the Democratic Party, but Stephen A. Smith is not a leftist, which he would tell you, like he doesn't agree with a lot of the leftist policies. So people hear this kind of thing and they're like, oh, he would be different. He would probably support the AOC like Bernie type of agenda. No, he doesn't. He doesn't support that. So just keep that in mind. Let's get to the student debt piece.
Kamala is what you had. I respect our former vice president of the United States. I wish her luck. I hope she runs for the gubernatorial seat in the state of California. But when she ran for president in 2020, she couldn't even make it to Iowa. And all of a sudden, y'all wanted us to act like she was a rock star because you wanted Biden going so badly after his debilitating performance on the June 27th debate stage. Tim Walz, you picked him when everybody practically in the party thought, or not everybody, but a lot of people thought that Josh Shapiro would have been a prime candidate. They said this guy's a star. And he's running up in the state of Pennsylvania well. And he isn't married to certain leftist policies, extreme leftist progressive policies.
He's also a rabid Zionist who was signing missiles to kill Palestinian children. He's also a Zionist. He's a horrible person. And I think when it comes to that issue, when it comes to Israel and Gaza, I don't think Stephen A. Smith is well versed on that. It's just something that I've noticed. Again, I knew him for a long time as a sports commentator on ESPN, not know him, but watched him on ESPN for a long time. And I feel like that really is like his field. Now he's trying to, get into political commentary a little bit as well. But I think that when he brings some of these things up, it's important to do your research. Josh, first of all, I don't know, a lot of people wanted her to pick Josh Shapiro. Second of all, Josh Shapiro is a rabid Zionist. He said some very cringe things about the pro-Palestinian protesters. Definitely would have not been a good idea for Kamala to pick him. So this is, again, another example where he thinks he's right about that, but he's not. He's just not in the trenches to understand. A lot of people were against Josh Shapiro, especially those that are pro-Palestinian.
The way Tim Walz would have been. He would have been a better candidate for Kamala Harris to ultimately win this race. These are the kind of things that were being said. These are the kind of things that was going on. And what I'm saying is, pick the best candidate. Pick the best chance for you to win. How do you believe that Tim Walz is going to give you a better chance to win than Josh Shapiro? Why wasn't Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland, a more prolific voice out there on the scene? I'd vote for him in a heartbeat.
Because again, like he's naming a bunch of AIPAC people. But again, because the strategy, from what I understood, was supposed to be to pick someone from either a swing state or someone from a state that's next to a swing state, like that Midwest or whatever, so that you can get those voters in those states or whatever. But now he's just naming people who are just Zionists. Let's continue.
But us pointing out these things that are wrong with the Democratic Party makes me bad? Makes me a megaphone for the MAGA left or the MAGA right? I happen to believe certain things I don't have a problem with. I don't have a problem with trying to address inflation. I don't have a problem with saying we can't have over 12 million illegal immigrants crossing the borders and we do nothing about that. I don't have a problem with people saying folks who commit crimes but need to have their behinds in jail. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with sitting there and discussing or at least debating the viability of eradicating all student loans. I had to pay mine.
Okay, so Stephen A. Smith says he doesn't have a problem debating that. I think he should have that debate with Breonna Joy Gray. I think he should. I'm pretty sure she'd probably do it. Pretty sure he'd lose that debate. But I'm sure he should have that conversation, because here's the thing. Okay. Stephen A., let's look at some things. We're going to go through a little bit of data. Okay. Stephen A. Smith. When did Stephen A. Smith go to college? Right? See, this is the thing with the whole I had to pay mine. Let's get into it. Let's look at the generation shift here, right? Stephen A. Smith, he graduated from high school in 1986 from Thomas Edison High School in Queens. Okay. He went to the Fashion Institute for 1 year, and then he received a basketball scholarship to attend Winston-Salem State University, where he played basketball under Hall of Fame coach Clarence Gaines. So he got a scholarship to go to college. Winston-Salem State University is an HBCU, for those who are not aware, but it could have been, I don't know how long he played basketball or whatever, but it could have been, maybe it didn't cover all expenses. Maybe he still had to take out student loans. The point is this. He graduated from college in 1991. He's a member of Omega Psi Phi, graduated in 1991, Bachelor of Arts degree in mass communication. So, hello. 1991 versus 2025. How much did college cost when Stephen A. Smith went to college? What was the job market like when Stephen A. Smith graduated from college? How much was the tuition when Stephen A. Smith? So listen, guys, let's talk about this for a second. He had a basketball scholarship and he had financial aid. So let's look at the numbers, okay? Let's look at a little bit of the numbers. If we go back, total tuition, room, and board, four-year institutions, tuition and required fees in state for public institutions. All right. So let's look at both. If we go to 1987, which is when he went to college, actually right here, 1987, 88. At that point in time, according to this, and this is the EdGov programs site. In 1987, tuition, room, and board for a four-year institution, the average for all institutions, $5,494. The average, $5,494. So there's a big price difference. So when he says he had to pay his, okay, yeah, you had to pay your student loans back. Okay, look at how cheap your tuition was. By the way, that's the dorm, the tuition, and the fees. That's all of that. The average, $5,494, including the dorms. The dorms is usually where they get you. That's usually where, because you can just pay the tuition and maybe if you were able to commute from home, you'll be fine. But the dorms is usually where they get you with the price, right? So 1987. And if we just look at the tuition and required fees at that point in time, $2,458 for the average. Okay? So, no. And I don't even know like what to tell you guys, but it's very obvious that there's a big difference. I want to show you now. Let's do a comparison. The annual cost of college, public university, four-year in-state, cost of tuition, $9,750. This is the average. That's just the tuition. That doesn't count room and board. So just keep this in mind, okay? All right. Out of state, cost of tuition, over $28,000. 2-year, over $3,500. But when you go over to here, this is what you really need to look at. The cost of attendance. The average cost of attendance for a public university in the United States today, $27,146 for a public school. That's insane. And that's in-state tuition. For a 4-year school, for out-of-state tuition is over $45,000. So the point that I'm trying to make is this. Tuition was a lot cheaper when Stephen A. Smith went to college. Tuition has continued to increase over the years. And look at the increase. Look at where we're at now. And even that depends on the school, right? That's the average. I think the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, I think it's 30,000. So it'll be a little bit higher than that 27,000. So the point is this. It's easy to say I had to pay mine when you went to college in 1987 and tuition was a lot cheaper, and you didn't have to deal with some of the economic issues that we had to deal with. And I'm going to show you the difference between the economic disasters that have also contributed to job loss and low wages. So when he said, I had to pay mine, I don't want you to think he was paying a lot. If we look at what has happened with the economy over the years, we have a list of the economic crisis. And I just want to start with, we're going to go back to the 80s, since he went to college in the 80s, right? Look at this. Now, he went to college in 1987. So we'll start there. Black Monday, US stock market crash. Okay. He was in college. He wasn't working. Savings and loan crisis, 1986, 1995. That could have had an impact. 1990, special period in Cuba, early 90s recession. We're skipping the international crisis. I'm talking about the ones that affected us here in the United States, right? So when we look at what actually impacted here in the United States, you don't see as much. Now, let's fast forward to the 2000s, because this is where things get crazy. This is what I want people to see. Early 2000 recession, dot-com bubble. Dot-com bubble. 2000 to 2002. Don't forget, Stephen A. Smith graduated in 1991. He was already gainfully employed before that happened. See, this is why context is important. These are the things that he didn't really have to, or he got ahead of. Let's put it that way. September 11. The rest are international. 2008 financial crisis. How many of you that are watching graduated college around that time during the 2008 financial crisis? How many of you lost work during the 2008 financial crisis? Think about this for a second. So again, by the time that happened in 2008, Stephen A. Smith was already a household name from what I remember. He was already ahead of the curve. So keep that in mind. 2008 housing crisis, energy crisis, subprime mortgage crisis from 2007 to 2010, United States housing bubble from 2003 to 2011, automotive industry crisis. Let's go on. 2010s. You know where I'm getting to, right? Okay. I think you guys kind of know where I'm getting to. Most of these are international. 2020s, the pandemic, economic impact of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And this is where we are. So I want you to compare that to the things that happened during the time that Stephen A. Smith was graduating college and the time that he was entering the workforce. And I want you to look at what happened since the 2000s. You have the subprime mortgage crisis. You have the dot-com bubble. And then we just recently had the pandemic. And I say all that to prove a point. While all of those things were going on, tuition continued to increase. Wages didn't adjust for inflation. The minimum wage hasn't increased since it was under Obama, and that increasement actually came from George W. Bush to happen under Obama's administration. So what the hell is Stephen A. Smith talking about? Because it's easy to say that when you were ahead of all that. So for people who, Gen Z, millennials, we've really been hit. We've really been hit economically. And it was like, it's one thing, then there's another, right? Soon as you get away from, you think you're starting to get a leg up against the housing crisis, the 2008 housing crisis, and then the pandemic. I don't think people understand how many people lost their homes, how many people struggled to find jobs during the 2008 housing crisis if you weren't around during that time. And if you were already ahead of the curve, you were already ahead of the curve. But if you were just graduating and trying to start your career, it was difficult and you took a hit. And that's not to mention that some people stayed in entry-level job positions because they were afraid. They were afraid to leave their job given the environment with the economy at that point in time. Does Stephen A. Smith not realize that the entry-level job requirement has increased over the years? That it has gone from 0 to 1 years of experience to 3 to 5 years of experience plus a college degree? Does he not realize that? Canceling student loan debt would benefit the economy, because if you canceled student loan debt, people would be able to take that money and put it right back into the economy. People would be able to put a down payment on a home. Young people aren't buying homes, not because they don't want them, they can't afford them. I bet you Stephen A. Smith has a home. There are literally people sitting back right now thinking the only way that they're going to get a home is if their parents give their house to them or their grandparents. And there have been some that has happened for. I'm just being honest with you. But I bet you he got a home. So he can't speak this way as though he's on the same level as everybody else. Now, if tuition was still the same, I can say, oh, okay, yeah, I kind of understand. But it's not. It's not. If the minimum wage had increased, I can say I kind of understand. If wages had adjusted for inflation, oh, okay, I can kind of understand. But it didn't. It didn't. That's why you still have people in their 30s, their late 30s and 40s still renting, not because they want to, but because they can't afford to own. And if you can't afford to own, how are you going to establish any generational wealth? So he don't understand. No. I had to pay mine. So when people say this, let me tell you how to push back on this as well. When people say, well, I didn't get to do, or I didn't get to do, maybe mention stuff like this. So should people not have Social Security because you didn't get to have it? Should people not have Medicare because you didn't get to have it? It wasn't a thing at the time. What are we doing? Just think about these things. Even Obamacare. Should people not have, and there's criticism about Obamacare, don't get me wrong, it needs to be universal health care, but should people not have Obamacare because you died before that happened and you didn't get to have it? There are too many rich people trying to tell these the lonely working poor people what we should and shouldn't have. You know what I'm saying? Like there's too many millionaires and billionaires walking around trying to tell us what we should and should not have. So the point is this: nothing is permanent. College tuition is not permanent. Student loan interest rates are not permanent. These things change. So the way that he is speaking is if things were permanent and those prices were fixed and nothing changed. But there's been a lot of change and there's been a lot of economic disaster, and he doesn't want to get into that. That is a problem. So Stephen A., you say that you will debate anyone about that issue. I think you should have that debate with Brianna Joy Gray, because she went into this issue very, very much so about the student loan debt cancellation. You said anybody. So let's see if he's serious about that. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, JJ. This is why I started my STR business. Okay, JJ said he has a business. Lucas says Stephen A. Smith is a sports debater. Just because politics have become entertainment doesn't mean people like him should have a voice. Damn, Lucas. Skylar, what the hell is he wearing? Oh, yeah, I saw this. Oh, my gosh. I don't know what he was wearing on that. Shout out to Anthony Ruger Phillips, who gifted 1 Sabby Sabs membership. Thank you, Anthony. And thank you, Savannah. Sabby, do you think universal healthcare works? There's a Canadian story this week where a patient had to wait 18 months to start cancer treatment. They have 37,000 people a year die waiting for care. I do think universal healthcare works. I mean, that's one person's story. I would need to read the full story about that. Do I think it's perfect? No, there's no healthcare system that's going to be perfect. And I think that this is also why how many doctors you have is important, right? Like we have a lot of doctors here in the United States. We have a lot of nurses. In fact, in some states, the nursing industry is oversaturated because there's so many nurses now. So I think that we would be able to handle that here in the United States. I really do. But thank you for asking, Savannah. Thank you, New York Varsity. One cannot be a betrayer if one does not have a people. That man owes you nothing except a conversation, period. Thank you for this one, New York, as well. Winston-Salem is Division II. D2 schools do not offer full athletic scholarship for all 4 years. Stephen A. Smith was clever, went to FIT to get his cheap on, then rode the remaining years at the HBCU. Thank you for this one as well. In the end, Sabs is right, RE tuition. Heck, back then you can wait tables and put yourself through college. And this is the tuition miscommunication. Good point. Thank you, Brian. Stephen A. either trying to compete with the Pat McAfee show in their casual format, or he's showing LeBron the gun show. So maybe he was trying to show off his muscles. I don't know. Thank you, New York. For journalists back then, college was not a requirement. These days, they all have Ivy League educations. The 90s forced us into college. Bam. Shout out to Delthea, who's been a member for 43 months. Stephen A. is like the cousin at the cookout who knows all about money except how it actually works. Inflation is a thing, Stephen, so hush. Thank you, John. If we had a socialist government with centralized planning, we could develop AI while still providing everybody jobs, education, healthcare, and retirement. That is interesting, John. Thank you, none of your business. Student debt money goes into the bankers' pockets. Shout out to Goba. The only war in the U.S. is class war. And like Gaza, only one side getting crushed. 80% working poor. And thank you, Nexus. I work in AI. 10 years may be a bit ambitious, but an AI takeover is inevitable. Only the best of the best will survive in the workforce. You guys hearing this? You hearing it? Let's get the comment on Rockfin. Thank you. Hey. And guys, please make sure you answer the poll. Thank you. Thanks, Roger. Okay, hands-free from shaving and brushing teeth, free to message. First, Mike Waltz and Pete Hegseth. I don't fab. I said last year when everyone was panicking about Trump's cabinet, especially Musk. I said, look, everyone or most he's hired won't be there by the end of the year. Vivek didn't even make it to Inauguration Day. Looks like Mike and Peter won't. Don't worry, he'll get to Musk. Interesting. And thank you for this one. No one would hire with no experience, yet wouldn't be willing to train you to. We have to make Gates' prediction as bad as his Windows OS. Pass initiatives for workers to take over the enterprise, manufacturing, production, distribution, supply chains. Then we get to decide. Give Gates' vision glaucoma. If you replace our jobs, If you replace our jobs, and don't give us UBI, Medicare for all, or make UBI pay under the cost of living. Thank you. And thank you for the tip, JVB. Sabby is on the march. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and get into the next story here. I don't know what's going on there. All right, guys, smash that like button if you haven't done so. Thank you. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. We're moving on to our next story in just a second. I do want to issue an announcement. Thank you to all of you who donated to the mutual aid event. Shout out. It was a great success. I did message it on Twitter here. I said we donated grocery gift cards and shoes to families today in Boston. Thank you to everyone who donated and who made our donation a success. And I just want to show you guys here. This is one of the guys from the families that we donated to. And then there's Pastor Wheeler and others that are part of the Boston chapter for mutual aid. And you see the family there. And then those were the gift cards. Yeah, I was able to get 15 Stop and Shop gift cards, all thanks to you guys, right? So you guys know groceries are high and it's been an issue, but this was a more of an urgent mutual aid event. So thank you guys so much. Really appreciate you. And then also, I do have a short video here that I want to share to you guys. And yes, it's cold in Boston. It's still cold here. Gift cards that were given out, the grocery store gift cards. So thank you to everybody who donated for that. But we also were giving out coats as well because it's still cold. Colder than I expected. And we're also giving out shoes. There were requests for shoes, and then also the hat and gloves as well. So yes, this is Boston and it's still cold. So, but thank you to all you guys. Yeah, so thank you guys so much. Really do appreciate that. We did a fundraiser for it. And yeah, just wanted to make sure you guys know that went really well. And yes, it is cold. Like we got a couple of warm days. I think like last week, there were a couple of days where it seemed like we were getting spring weather and then it just got cold again all of a sudden. And I was like, oh my God, it's cold. So yeah, super happy and super excited about that. Yes, I am starting the mutual aid workshop. It will be in April. Sorry, I've been incredibly busy, but it will be in April. So you guys will be able to attend a mutual aid workshop. So I'll teach you how to do mutual aid in your area. So that way you'll be able to do it too if you want to. I know some of you have told me that you want to do that, but I think it helps to teach people how to do it. Because otherwise you just, you can kind of get lost in the wind out there, literally lost in the wind. So yeah. For those who are new, just something to keep in mind, like I don't just do this show, right? Like I was an activist before I had the show. So I also do mutual aid. Those of us and my comrades at RBN, we all do mutual aid as well. So when I say don't put your hope in these politicians, it's because I've been able to see change on the ground locally just by organizing within the community. And I think that's where I get, my hope from. I don't get my hope from politicians. Right. So we will start that. And I have one more. Thank you, Ivan, for the super chat. I just finished watching the AI part of the show. AI replacing workers will greatly impact the economy. AI does not pay federal taxes, local taxes, or Social Security. AI also doesn't spend money in the economy either. Ooh, Ivan, that is a really good point. Damn. That's a good one, Ivan. Thank you so much. That was something I didn't think about, but very good. Very good. Okay, let's get on to this crazy ass story. All right. So again, nothing is permanent, folks. And you'll see that with this crazy Greenland situation as well. First of all, I think this is a distraction. I'm going to be very clear about this, you guys. All this focus on Donald Trump and JD Vance trying to acquire Greenland is a distraction from them not doing things for the American people. That's not America first, right? Like, so I see people saying, yeah, this is great. Rah, rah, America. We should go ahead and take Greenland. Okay. Are we going to get Greenland's healthcare? Are we going to get Greenland's healthcare? Because they have universal healthcare. Everybody need to think about that for a second. Think about what that really means. But JD Vance again had a conversation. He delivers remarks in Greenland. Let's get into this. And I have some things to say, fam.
And then we'll take some questions from the reporters. So number one, I think a lot of Americans wonder, why does Greenland matter so much? Why does the mission of this base matter so much to the American people? And I learned a lot about that today myself. Of course, you can read about it in a book, but I saw it up close and personal. And if, God forbid, to my fellow Americans, if a missile was fired from an enemy country or an enemy submarine into the United States, it is the people here before us who would give notice to our brave men and women further south in the United States to let people know what was coming and God willing to try to shoot it down and prepare for it. That's one of the things that we do at installations like this. We know that Russia and China and other nations are taking an extraordinary interest in Arctic passageways and Arctic naval routes, and indeed in the minerals of the Arctic territories. We need to ensure that America is leading in the Arctic, because we know that if America doesn't, other nations will fill the gap where we fall behind. So what?
That's what this is really about. This is what I was trying to tell you before when Trump announced, yeah, let's just take Greenland or whatever. First of all, I don't agree with that. Taking other countries, acquiring other countries, taking resources from other countries, I don't agree with it. But let me break this down for just a second. That's what this is really about. China's involvement with Greenland in the Arctic, the US government sees that as a problem, or more so the Trump administration is like, no, China's there. We should be there instead. That means that China is just acquiring more power or more wealth. So it's not that they care about the people of Greenland. And that's important, because the way that JD Vance is going to frame this later on is that we care about the people of Greenland. That's not what this is about. This is about the resources that are in that area and the US trying to make sure that they get a stake on that and pull that away from China.
What you guys do is so critically important. I think a lot of Americans, certainly I, didn't realize it fully until President Trump started talking about the importance of our Arctic mission, about building upon it and ensuring that America can lead in the Arctic for the next generation. And now I want to talk about, of course, the interaction and what Denmark, I think, has done, and sometimes in partnership with us, but let's be honest, what Denmark over the last 20 years has failed to do in some cases, because we know that unfortunately this place, this base, the surrounding area is less secure than it was 30, 40 years ago, because some of our allies haven't kept up. As China and Russia have taken greater and greater interest in Greenland, in this base, in the activities of the brave Americans right here, we know that too often our allies in Europe have not kept pace. They haven't kept pace with military spending, and Denmark has not kept pace in devoting the resources necessary to keep this base, to keep our troops, and in my view, to keep the people of Greenland safe from a lot of very aggressive incursions from Russia, from China, and from other nations. Now,
Here's my take on this. Now, imagine being vice president from the United States. Imagine being JD Vance. Imagine just coming from the United States to stand there in front of Greenland and to tell them what Denmark has not done for the people in Greenland, when you are coming from a country where nobody is guaranteed health care. Do you guys, you know what I'm talking about? And just think about this for a second. Denmark and Greenland both have universal health care. Both of them. You're coming from a country where we don't have it, where people have medical debt. One of the number one causes of debt in this country is medical debt. Everybody keeps saying student loans. There's also medical debt. You coming from a country where it costs thousands and thousands of dollars just to have a baby at the hospital. And you go to Greenland, a country that has universal health care, and complain about how Denmark isn't treating the people there right. And Denmark also has universal health care. And you coming from a country that doesn't have it. So when we talk about taking care of the people and treating the people right, who's really not treating its people right? This country. If we were treating our people right, we wouldn't have homeless vets on the street. All you got to do, walk through Harvard Square, you pass them. Walk through Downtown Crossing, you pass them. I'm in the Boston area, for those who didn't know. You pass them. Why we got homeless veterans on the street? Why we got homeless people? Why? In this country, why we have that? Why do we have people being evicted? Why do we have people living paycheck to paycheck in this country? And we're so wealthy. We're so wealthy and powerful. Why do we have that? Because we have a defense budget that's over $800 billion. And instead of slashing that defense budget, which is what Trump and JD Vance should be doing and benefiting the American people, They just want to go cause more problems across the world. Meet your new boss, same as the old boss. So you see these things, right? In fact, I said that this actually went pretty viral. I was surprised by this. It's the simple things that go viral for some reason on X. I said this pissed me the fuck off. Imagine telling Denmark they don't do enough for people in Greenland when both countries have universal health care and your country doesn't. That's what I said. You guys know that this tweet has over 133,000 likes. I don't know how that happened. Simple statement, but it's just obvious. But that's the US government. That's how they are. Let's go back in. Now they're trying to, again, get their hands in the Greenland, cause some other type of conflict, controversy. If it's not Denmark and Greenland, it's the Panama Canal. If it's not that, it's Iran. If it's not Iran, it's Yemen. It's not Yemen, it's Russia. It's something. It's just seems like to me there's one common enemy. That's us. We're the common denominator, the United States.
Trump, as he says all the time, and as a lot of people recognize, is a president of peace. We want to have good relationships with everybody. That includes, even to the extent possible, the Chinese and the Russians. But part of having good relations is showing your strength when you have to. And unfortunately, the story of Greenland over the past 20 years when it comes to security is that we've underinvested in the infrastructure, we've underinvested in the security architecture, and we've underinvested in the brave men and women who are doing a very hard job, as Mike said, to keep all of us safe. That has to change. Now, when I pointed out a couple of weeks ago that in some ways, with all due respect to our Danish allies, they had not kept pace, there was a lot of criticism from Denmark, a lot of attacks at the Trump administration, at the president, at me, at others in our administration for saying the obvious, which is that Denmark hasn't done a good job at keeping Greenland safe. And one of the things I heard was, well, what about the many Danes who lost their lives in the war on terror fighting alongside the United States? Well, look, we obviously honor the sacrifice of our Danish friends in the war on terror 20 years ago, just as, for example, the French honor the sacrifice of Americans in Normandy 80 years ago. But recognizing that there are important security partnerships in the past does not mean that we can't have disagreements with allies in the present about how to preserve our shared security for the future. And
let's pause here for a second. The thing that makes this so crazy to me is the Denmark thing. Imagine going after Denmark. Have you ever been to Denmark? You guys ever been to Denmark? Denmark is chill as fuck. Imagine going after them. Okay. They were letting people just smoke weed in the streets before we even started to decriminalize it in some of the states here in the United States. People in Denmark just want to ride their bikes, smoke a joint, and say what's up. And all the people to go after. What is this? Denmark has not been doing their job. They're not keeping the people there safe. Man, leave Denmark alone, man. The fuck? It's just out of all the people to go after. I never ever thought this. Never ever thought this. They're just mad chill. So why are you going after these people? Why? I don't get it. I don't get it at all. But again, it's about resources, right? The Arctic, that Arctic Circle, trying to find a way to get China out of there. So let's acquire green. This is so stupid. In my mind, I'm just like, leave these countries alone. And I wonder how the people in Greenland really feel, not the few that were standing there excited to meet Donald Trump. I'm talking about the majority of people in Greenland. I wonder how they feel about this. And that you can just acquire another country. Stop. But that's the US. That's what the US has continued to do. And people need to start asking these questions when it comes to Greenland, okay? If we acquire Greenland, are we going to take care of the Greenland people? I'm going to ask this again. Don't forget, Greenland has universal health care. So if the US acquires it, who is going to pay for their health care? Is anybody asking this question? Is Denmark still going to be a part of that? I just don't. So many other things that could be done. So many other things that could be done right here in the United States that we need to deal with. We have problems here in our own country that we need to solve. And people need to understand a thing or two about this. When I told you it's a distraction, people are cheering this on. This is Donald Trump and JD Vance trying to convince you that they're doing something for you. They're not. If they were doing something for you, again, like I said, we wouldn't have as many homeless people in this country. Get out of here. It's a joke. Just like RFK's, look, let's make America healthy again thing. It's also a joke. You want to make America healthy? Give people clean water. Go to Flint. Go to Jackson, Mississippi. Give people clean. How about you start with that? Make sure Americans have clean drinking water. They're not serious. It's a distraction. I just hope people are starting to see it. So when I say nothing is permanent, that includes Greenland, because apparently Greenland may become part of the United States for whatever reason. Nothing is permanent, apparently. Let's get to the comments here in the chat, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll get to our final story. Thank you, New York Varsity. And if Greenland says no, do we invade Greenland? Do we need NATO against U.S. expansion? If others are interested in the Arctic, based on what intel? Basically, his words, Trump's words were, if it doesn't happen in the way that they want so, then they'll try to take it by force. It's so ridiculous. The Oracle said, I continue to say the U.S. uses its military apparatus to go out foraging for resources in service of capitalism. There you go. And thank you, Edie. I'd like to say that 1984 was a warning, not a manual. Ooh, that's a good one. Thank you, Adul. Would you say that the beef between Jink and Francesca is worse than what the Breakfast Club had with Jess, Hilarious, Lauren, Charlemagne, and DJ Envy? It's sad. I don't know that I would want to compare the two. One's political commentary, the other is a hip hop show, hip hop pop culture show. And the situations are different. So I don't know if I would compare the two. And Tia says the people of Greenland will get the same quality food and healthcare that the Americans have right now. Wow. Interesting. All right, guys, we are getting to our final story, and this one is a doozy. If you haven't done so, smash the like button. Thank you. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share like a Care Bear. Thank you, fam. Okay. We got to get to this story. I have things to say about both sides. So I'm going to try to get people to see where both sides are coming from with this particular story. It appears that TYT has fired a contributor. That contributor is Francesca Fiorettini. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. And Cenk Uygur did release a video with a long explanation about why he decided to fire her. And she also responded as well. Now, here's the thing. Nothing is permanent. And I want you guys to keep that in mind as we go through this story. But also, I want you to understand where both sides are coming from. I'm not here to say I'm on team so-and-so. That is not me. That's not this show. Okay. And I think some people want that. That's not what this is. I'm going to show you where both sides are coming from so that you guys can get hopefully a different perspective than what you may have heard already. Right. So let's get into the start of it where Cenk announces that he fired her. Listen to this.
Recently, Francesca Fiorettini asked us at TYT to take her podcast, Habituation Room, off the network. And we happily agreed to that. And today, I'm going a little further and I'm going to take Francesca off the network entirely. So you won't see her on any of the TYT shows going forward. So I want you guys to know why I'm doing that and how this whole situation isn't really about Francesca. It's about TYT, our community, and what we stand for.
Okay, so I thought that was kind of nasty. I thought that was kind of, well, she wanted to take her show off of the TYT network, and I decided, we're just gonna go ahead and fire her completely. I thought that was kind of nasty. Like, I thought that was like, you ain't really had to, I don't know. Thought that was kind of nasty. Now, Cenk Uygur says that there are 3 rules that they have. And apparently it is those rules that led to why he decided to fire her. Again, you'll get to hear her perspective as well. So let's go ahead and jump to the 3 rules and skip over all this other stuff. Now, some people thought it was because they have a difference of agreement when it comes to the trans community. I don't know. I mean, I've seen people that have been contributors for TYT or actually, hosts for TYT have that disagreement and butt heads. Some decided to leave TYT because of that, and that's their right and their choice. But I don't think it's just that. Listen to this part here about the 3 rules that apparently they have at TYT.
So I think where the issue comes in is when things get personal. So we got 3 rules, generally speaking, on air here at TYT that are relatively bright lines. So one is, and I say relative, I'll explain that in a second. One is no lying. 2 is no threats of physical violence. And number 3 is don't denigrate personally the other hosts in the network over and over and over again. And I say relatively bright lines because it should be relatively easy to follow, but I get that people have disagreements about, hey, what's a lie? Are what they say about crime stats a lie or not? No, I'm not gonna nitpick that. And we get into heated debates from time to time, me and Ben Glebe in the past, me, Ben Mankiewicz, me, Michael Shore, etc. And I love those debates. And somebody might cross a line and say something they shouldn't have, but we usually hug it out. And so I'm not nitpicking here. What we're looking for is, hey, are we all rowing generally in the same direction, or are some of us drilling holes in the boat? And so are you doing it over and over again on purpose to try to create an issue? Or even if you're not trying to do it, you are creating an issue by constantly attacking our own. And I have applied this 2 other times, which I'll tell you about in a minute.
Pause. So did you guys hear what he said there about constantly attacking our own? So let me go ahead and talk about this in business terms, okay? You see, there's YouTube and then there's a network, a company, and a business. And I think what sometimes people just don't consider is that TYT is a business. TYT is a company, okay? They're not just on YouTube. There's a TYT channel on cable, or at least there used to be. When I had cable, TYT has a Roku channel. This isn't just a YouTube show. TYT was one of the first YouTube partners in the YouTube partner program. They're heavily on the algorithm. So it's a business. And now, why am I saying that? There is a big difference from having a YouTube show where you talk about politics like I do on the show and having an actual business and a network, a company. And I said this years ago that when they decided to take that $20 million from Jeffrey Katzenberg, yeah, that money will help you and it'll help grow the company and maybe help you get some things other things that you wanted to get. But there's things that come with that money. When you start taking big money from investors, then it's kind of like you might have to be a little bit careful about certain things you talk about. And maybe you may have to change the way that you present information. What do I mean by that? When TYT first started, remember, it was a little bit more chill, a little bit more relaxed, right? They used to do these shows where they used to go out and like try to find the camel toe. Do everybody remember this? The camel toe shows that they used to do back in the day? Yeah. So they used to go out and like get pictures of women's, hoo-has, and they would show it on the show and like, oh, whose celebrity camel toe is this? Then later on, they got more investors. And as you saw, they became more and more like professional, more polished. The studio is nicer, all those types of things. They have an entire staff. Most of us, smaller YouTube channel, we don't have staff. Most of us don't have. I have Eric who produces in the background. If Eric's not here, Corey's here, and Corey clips the stories for the show. That's it. I don't have a staff. And that means that they also have to do payroll. That means they're also paying for, I would hope, paying for benefits. So that includes healthcare. That includes like all those things that an actual company would do. When you own a company, you are going to start to look out for what you think is best for the company, what you think is best for the business. Not necessarily what you like or who you like. This is the dirty part about business. It's not always about what you like or who you like. It's about what you think will be best for the company or what the investors think will be best for the company. Don't forget they're partnered with Polymarket now. This is just some weird stuff, man. That's like a gambling site. So that money's coming from somewhere. Just wanted to say that there, and then we'll get back to this.
This all started, unfortunately, when I went on Francesca's show, and we had what seemed like a normal conversation and debate about this issue until it made a turn. And this is part of the turn. Let me show you.
I'm reminded of the book by I think his name is Michael Schneider on tyranny, and he wrote it's like 20 lessons from the 20th century about authoritarianism and fascism. And one of the things that has come to mind when you say my strategy will protect us is he has this chapter. I'm going to bring it up. The first part of it called "Do Not Obey in Advance," and he writes most of the power of authoritarianism is freely given. In times like these, individuals think ahead about what a more repressive government will want, and then offer themselves without being asked. A citizen who adapts in this way is teaching power what it can do. In other words, you don't have to do the sort of crackdown on the left around speech because I'm going to do it for you, or you don't have to come to me.
Down. Again, you're misstating it. I'm doing the exact opposite. You're cracking down by saying, Cenk, you're out of bounds. So you should stop your stupid opinion. And because you're implicating me.
I can't believe that a guy who I used to admire and who I thought had a lot of fight is trying to scratch the back of people who absolutely would never do the same for them.
So this is Francesca here. For those who are not aware, she's the one that Cenk Uygur fired. She's actually been with TYT for a long time, probably over 10 years. So she's one of the, old school kind of, contributors there. She's been there for a long time. She's also a comedian from what I understand. Now she does have her own show called The Bituation Room. She has her own, YouTube channel, but she was also a contributor for TYT. From what I understand, that Bituation Room, a channel, was also, I guess, affiliated with TYT, and she's demanding that, or wanted that affiliation to end, at least for that show. And then he decided to take it a step further and say, I'm just going to fire you, all together, right? So this part is tame compared to the other things that he shows. But it's obvious to me, I keep saying that TYT is a business because I do want you guys to understand something. That when Cenk Uygur is her boss. Now he gets to this part here. Listen to this.
Then that was the tip of the iceberg. She continued again and again. Here's the next one.
I do think it's sad that even though they allow people like us into the fold and the fray, they refuse to learn from us or listen to us. And I think that when you have been doing this work for so long and you still cannot grasp the idea of intersectionality, how race and gender and class all intertwine with one another, and how the fascist goal is to divide us based on these lines. I don't even know I don't know like who you are. Like I don't even know if you're smart. You know what I mean? I don't even know. First of all, I don't know who your political mentors are. I don't know who you look up to. I don't know what your touchstones are. I don't know if you know your history in terms of like civil rights, women's rights, gay rights struggle in this country. I don't know anything. I call into question all of that. It sounds like you are just an opportunistic mouthpiece who wants clicks time and time again.
Okay, so again, one thing to understand, TYT is a company, it's a business, he's her boss. Now, do I think that she should be able to disagree with her boss? Absolutely. Do I think that someone who is a commentator should not be censored and they should have that freedom to say what they really feel? Abso-fucking-lutely. However, you're basically working for the person that you're criticizing. And even at that point, I don't think that criticism is as harsh, but that is your boss, right? So this is where things get kind of sticky because like I said, people see TYT and they're like, well, it's this, they're big on YouTube. Like that was the home of progressives, etc. But it is a business. It is a company. They have a Roku channel. They had a cable channel. Like they're running a business and a company. And so the way that he may be looking at it is if he feels as though it's bad for the image of the company or whatever, although I think this is more personal, but if he thinks it's bad for the image of the company or whatever, that these discussions are being had, then he's kind of like, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and, cut the cord and just get that out of the way. But the problem that comes in is that it seems like it was more personal. Not so much that she was criticizing the direction that TYT was going in, but because some of the things that she said about him personally. We go on a little bit more here.
Okay, so obviously it's getting deeply personal there. Opportunistic mouthpiece, can't grasp simple concepts, not smart. But guys, and I'm not angry. Look, people have different opinions and they want to make it personal. It is what it is, right? I'm more sad about it. I'll say something at the end about that. But to me, the attitude that is toxic, and that's what I don't want at TYT. I want to build a community that is really open to conversations. Is they refuse to learn from us. So the idea is, well, obviously I'm right and the only moral center of the universe, and I already told him that, and this guy wouldn't even learn from me.
So, and this is the other problem that I wanted to bring up, right? Some of the things that, and I haven't watched TYT in years. Like I want people to understand this. It's been years since I've watched TYT, and I'll tell you part of the reason why. It's just kind of weird to me how it went from being, like Cenk and Anna and sometimes John and even Hassan at one point, they would all be a part of it was like more like a panel, like part of that main panel, to it just being like Cenk and Anna. I felt like there should have been rotation within that spot. That's just me. Also from what I've seen is that it seems like the rhetoric that is now coming or has actually been coming for quite a bit. I warned people about it like a year ago. The rhetoric that was coming from Cenk in particular, I think it started with Anna, this whole criticism against what's called the radical left, which I would be considered radical left by his definition, is a problem. That the radical left is a problem. I take criticism, about that because number one, I don't think I'm radical, but number two, that's the same message that people said about Bernie supporters. That's the same message that MSNBC said about Bernie supporters in 2020 and 2016 and Fox News as well. They both agreed on that issue, that the Bernie supporters were radical. And now Cenk Uygur is saying that. See, it started with Anna. Anna was the one that started saying that this defund the police is radical, like these people are radical and all that kind of stuff. And then eventually, Cenk started saying it too. In fact, you go look on X right now, you can see he has a post that says that the radical leftists are a problem and How is that any different from the same type of rhetoric that came from corporate media against those of us who voted for Bernie? That's not any different. That's what I was saying before about people who tend to be these business owners, especially if they're trying to grow a business, is not uncommon for them to move further to the right. And that's what I'm trying to wake people up to understand. They're going to do what's best for the company. They're going to do what's best for the business. And if they see that, and this could be what is happening, if they see that the progressivism, the progressive movement, like that type of thing, and not entertaining with MAGA in some way, shape, or form is problematic for the company as a business, then as a business owner, he's going to make adjustments. That's the difference between doing this for fun and doing this as like a side project and actually having a network that is a company. And I'm a part of, obviously, you guys know I'm a part of RBN, but RBN, like there's 5 of us, like we don't make much like over there at RBN, right? And we don't have a boss. Like that's the difference. Like we're all like kind of, together. Now she goes on to say something else that I want to show you as well here. Let's bring this up.
There. This is now another show. Watch.
So Cenk's line up until this point has been, no, it's at the collegiate level and above. I think once you get to the college level and above, that's when it's bad. So he would be on board with what the NCAA said recently. But you're so dumb. You're so dumb. I don't even know how to explain this to you anymore. Unless, this is the other option, unless you also are a transphobe. You know what I'm saying? Unless you also are kind of a misogynist.
Because if you disagree with Francesca or anyone on that part of the spectrum, well, you must be a misogynist. You must be collaborating with the fascists, and obviously you must be unintelligent. But
to be fair, there were, we go back, remember, there were those messages from those statements from Cenk Uygur years ago that was released that showed him making some misogynistic comments from years ago. Now, this is a long time ago. It's not like it's a new thing. And from what I remember, he apologized for that. This is when he was a part of Justice Democrats. And if I remember correctly, I believe that's why he walked away from Justice Democrats. There was a call for him to resign because that was released, right? So he used to be conservative like back in the day or whatever. And he was saying some things. That's how he felt at that point in time, I guess. And then people changed or whatever. Anyway, look, the point is this. And I mean, for her to say that, you do kind of have the history of that. Like, that's the thing. It's not like there's nothing she can point to and say that you made these comments. So there's that point as well. Now, it goes on a little bit further.
If I had called her dumb, I wonder what her reaction would have been. My guess is nuclear. But I didn't call her that because we have a disagreement. We have a political disagreement. You don't need to make it personal. Not done yet. One last one.
What has it got you? What did it get you? When you go and share a stage with Dr. Phil, what did it get you? Nothing. You know why? Because you look like a bitch. You know what I'm saying? You look like a bitch. That's what it is. Like, that's just what it comes down to. You don't look like a fighter. You don't look smart. You look like a bitch. That's just the reality. I've tried to tell it to you nicely. I've tried to tell it to you cordially. I've tried to tell it to you on your show, on my show, on every show. And so either you A, are a bitch, or B, you actually agree with the right. And I'm starting to think, in fact, I do think it's the latter.
Okay, so again, if I had called her that, that would have been a different situation, right? But look, guys, also on the policy or the strategy, when you go talk to the right wingers, first we did that, and I mainly did that, and there was a lot of blowback saying, don't ever talk to the right wing, but they won the popular vote. How are we gonna win back the voters if we never talk to them?
I don't think a big part of it was just because he talked to people on the right. I think a big part of it was because you went and talked to Charlie Kirk and you didn't push back, right? So I think that's a big part of it. We're not going to get into all that. I've gone over that before. Now, she did respond It's so funny. The chat is hilarious right now. Oh, Jamal Thomas is here. What's up? Jamal Thomas said, fire her ass. Yeah, this is the thing. Like, I think I hope I explain things from how a business perspective, from how Jink probably would look at it as like, I'm your boss and that's how you're talking about me, right? That type of thing. And it's a company, it's a business, etc. There could be this whole thing is like, oh, this isn't good for business, like that type of thing, right? So that's his perspective. Now let's get her perspective because she did respond. Listen to this.
Brief. Cenk Uygur, the head of TYT, recently hath forboden me from appearing on any TYT shows because, in part, I said that him capitulating to right-wing framing on many issues meant he was, quote, acting like a bitch. And the truth is, he was, and I'll explain that a little bit later. But first, some backstory. So I have been a contractor at TYT for 10 years now, appearing on all of the shows as a fill-in host, as a guest host during election coverage, on the TYT main show, on the Damage Report, and on Indisputable, along with a lot of other shows. I have always hopped on at the last minute, always helped out in a pinch. I guest host last minute, and yes, I was paid. And if you're watching this and you are a TYT contributor and you are not getting paid, stop going on TYT until you do. I've never been a full-time employee, never got healthcare, never got maternity leave when I had my child. But back in 2018, I was hired for a 6-month contract to pilot a show for $3,000 a month. Then, however, their funding bottomed out and I was let go. And they broke their contract. My reps at the time thought I should sue to get the full 6 months of payment and work that I was owed, but I didn't because I told them that TYT was good people. And
yep. So here, take this for a thing here. Okay. So first of all, the good people comment, right? Like she didn't do what she was advised to do because she's like, no, they're good people. You kind of look at it this way. They're giving you a chance, an opportunity, that type of thing. But at the end of the day, it is business. It really is. And like, I think letting them get away with that could have led to other things. But don't forget, like we talked about this before about the TYT, the union busting. We talked about that before, right? Obviously, there have been a number of people that have worked with the show, been a contributor, or they were an affiliate of TYT that had left and have said some things about like maybe there was monetary issues, according to them, that they weren't fairly compensated. That's another thing, right? Like, come on, you guys are making a lot of money there at TYT, I would think, when you have over 6 million subscribers and you have a cable channel and you have Roku as well, you're making a lot. I get it. They got the staff, so they probably have a lot of expenses as well. But when you're running on like this platform of we got to look out for working people and we got to support progressive policies, but at the same time, you're not willing to really look out for the working people that are working with you. I don't know what to say. It's just like, yeah, like a lot of these things came out. But to Jamal's point, which I think this is a good point. So when did she start thinking this? How many paychecks did she take before she realized it? Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Me personally, you guys know how I feel about workers. I don't agree with people losing their job. At the same time, that is her boss. Like, like I if I would have said my boss is acting like a bitch, I would have lost my job. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. I would have lost my job. But again, I think the environment that they had at TYT kind of made it acceptable, at least back in the day, to just kind of be real and raw with each other. And apparently that seemed to have changed.
And I wanted to maintain my relationship, and I did. That is until things started to turn for TYT politically. And this started happening around the pandemic. Around the pandemic, Anna Kasparian seemed to become focused on the issue of homelessness, especially in a city that I used to call home, which is San Francisco. She had an objectively scary experience with an unhoused person, and in fact, I went back to see when she told her audience about this. And I do remember the day that Anna told the story on air. In fact, I was also on after she told that story, but I didn't hear it at the time. It was within an interview that she was doing with an author by the name of Michael Schellenberger, who had written the book San Francisco, Why Progressives Are Ruining Cities. Instead of focusing on housing market prices, on how homelessness often leads to things like addiction and mental illness, Schellenberger focuses on Democrats who thinks go too easy on the unhoused. I remember that I jumped onto the show right after he got off, after that interview, and the TYT audience was really pissed because they felt like the framing and the platforming of someone like Schellenberger was a disservice to the issue of homelessness, mental illness, and addiction. Anna apparently took that as the chat downplaying what happened to her rather than how the issues were presented. She's since gone on right-wing shows like Glenn Beck, Piers Morgan, and Jillian Michaels, among others, to retell this story and use it as rationale for why she feels the left left her, that maybe she's never been left, why she's politically homeless, or, politically unhoused.
So now the conversation switches to Anna Kasparian, which is interesting because it sounds like, according to Jink's statement, it sounds like he was the one that fired her, not Anna. So it's interesting that the conversation is switching to her. And I'm just going to say this again, as I said before, like, look, nothing is permanent. Nothing. We could be here today, gone tomorrow. Nothing is permanent, right? This is one thing I will say is this. A lot of progressive YouTube came from TYT. I would say probably most of it. And it had been that way for quite some time, or they already had their own show and they became an affiliate of TYT. A lot of people may not remember, but even David Pakman at one point was an affiliate of TYT. Like, a lot of people went through TYT to kind of get their start. And I was never one of those people. And I remember when I first started the show in 2021, I remember receiving messages from people that were telling me that you need to get on TYT in order to grow. You're not going to get anywhere unless you're with TYT. And I didn't believe it. And I'm glad I didn't believe it. I didn't want to do that anyway. And here's why. When you are working for a network that is also a company, you're an employee. Like, whether you're contract, whether you're permanent, you're an employee. And that means that you have a boss, like you are working for Cenk Uygur or you are working for Anna Kasparian. You're working for one of them, somebody over there, right? And that may mean that there may come a time when they can get rid of your ass. Media is fickle. Media is one of these places, like you talk about here today, gone tomorrow, here today, gone tonight. Media is fickle. They'll keep you, they'll tell you you're doing a good job, and then when you least expect it, you're out of here. You never know. Because it's a business. Again, at the end of the day, that's an actual company. So I look back on those things and I'm like, I'm glad. Like, I didn't believe that. When people said that, I'm so glad I didn't fall for that and didn't believe it. And I continued to do what I was doing. And it is really interesting because I was fortunate and I was lucky that people were willing to platform me. I was lucky that when Bree was a co-host on Rising, she continued to bring me on a lot. I went on to Rising a lot. And that really like got me out there to a lot of people. I'm fortunate that happened. Otherwise, I don't know. I really don't know. That's where a lot of you found me, from that. So I think that what is being learned is I've watched so many people get fired in media over the past couple of years. Bree got fired from Rising because of Israel. Katie Halper got fired from Rising because of Israel. Francesca apparently got fired from TYT because of the personal attacks towards Jink. That's Cenk Uygur's word, as why he did what he did. But I've seen this as like a cycle type of thing. And I kind of just sit back sometimes and I'm like, I'm glad I wasn't like in that position. Now, again, she does have her own channel. She'll probably grow more now that this has happened. She's probably going to get like a couple thousand, maybe 10,000 subs because this has happened. That's how this whole cycle works. But I think the lesson that should be learned here, guys, is that always have your own shit. Always have your own shit. Or always have something on the side. Even when I worked in higher ed, one of my coworkers told me that she used to be a career coach. She told me one time, she said, let me tell you something. The little trick is, the thing is, you don't know when any of these people in here, any of these deans, these directors are going to say they don't need you anymore. We're cutting costs. You got to go. So you always have to have something on the side. She gave me that tip years ago. And I know it may sound like, oh, well, of course, Sabs, everybody knows that. No, everybody don't know that. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You might think you got this job and you're doing pretty well and they're giving you great reviews or whatever, but you don't know what's going to happen. When the pandemic came, a lot of people started getting laid off. And sometimes it comes down to a fact of people don't really give a damn how great you do in this job. When it's time to make cuts, sometimes they just go right down the list and start making cuts. So luckily for her, she does have her YouTube channel. I can't, like when Bree was fired from Rising, Bree still had Bad Faith podcast. When they fired Katie, Katie still had the Katie Halper show. Unfortunately, for a lot of people, that's not the case. A lot of times when people fire, they don't have anything else to fall back on. So I hope the lesson that I send to everybody out here today is, again, just make sure you always have your own shit. I don't care who you go work for. I don't care who you become buds with. I don't care, because people will turn on you. I've seen it over in time. I'm old enough. I'm not old, but I'm old enough to have seen it happen multiple times. Always have your own shit. And especially in independent media, I have watched people behind the scenes. I've watched people turn. I hate you. I love you. I hate you. I love you. F this person. You're growing faster than me. I'm going to start talking shit about you now. Like, especially in independent media, I don't trust most of these hoes. Okay. Most of them. And I don't know any of these people. I've never met Jink. I've never met Francesca. I've never interviewed any of these people. I really do not know them in that way, shape, or form. There's a lot. I feel like there's a split. I feel like there is like white left commentators. And I feel like then there's like black left commentators who may at one point have been a part of that bubble, but we have kind of moved over here a little bit. Like we've kind of, because of some of the things that we noticed that Francesca also mentions, which is that they didn't really want to talk about some of the issues that were directly impacting us. They didn't really want to talk about some of the issues that were directly impacting Black people. They didn't really want to get into that. They didn't really want to get into reparations, which is a debt that's owed. They didn't want to get into the fact that we will have zero net wealth by 2050. That's Black people. They didn't want to get into that. Now, why didn't they want to get into that? Because a lot of that came from the Bernie movement. The whole message was just focus on class. And while I support all those universal policies, the moment I start bringing this up, the real issues that impact the Black community, all of a sudden that white left side would start to smear me as your right wing. And this is why you don't see a lot of us moving in these spaces. Like, this is why. For those of you, if you're new, if you're a newbie to this channel and you're just your first time watching me, this is why you don't see a lot of us in those spaces anymore. This is exactly why. Because the moment you want to focus on and center on things that affect your community, it's a problem. But as long as you out there lifting up everybody else's community, they're totally fine with that. These people will have you seriously in a pit, in a hole, not realizing what's happening to the Black community. They really will. They don't talk about this shit. These are the same people that stopped talking about police brutality after George Floyd. They talked about George Floyd and that was it. All those other police brutality stories, they pretend like the shit don't even happen. Oh, let the Black person on TYT cover that story. This is why I don't get this is why I'm not in those spaces this is why, because I see what they do. And if you were here and you behind the scenes, you would see it too. You see what they do. You see how they pretend like the Black people aren't even here. And then it's like they'll get that one token that they need. And it's like, okay, you focus on all the black stuff. Let's go on a little bit more.
Since then, she's gone on to cover critical stories from a right-wing framing, like the alleged takeovers of buildings by Venezuelan gangs in Aurora, Colorado, like the mentally ill, undocumented man in Los Angeles, who was found lighting fires, but who was not responsible for the wildfires themselves in January. Throwing progressive mayors like Brandon Johnson of Chicago under the bus because he listens to teachers too much. Anna's actually really skilled at what she does, so the laziness with which she treats these stories really just stands out all the more.
Here's another example. If you talk to the black community in Chicago, ask them how they feel about Brandon Johnson. Did I just prove my point to you guys or what? You see what I mean? His approval rating is horrible. His approval rating is horrible. And that's with the black community.
I'll give you some backstory, though, of Anna and my friendship. We've never been close, despite a hike, a dinner, and the time that she generously gave me a gift for my new baby, and then explained to me that she was going to debate Ben Shapiro because, in her words, she, quote, felt she could win over his audience. Two moments with Anna stand out for me in terms of how I've always treated her. In 2016, I was working with AJ Plus, and we were at the RNC. I had just started going on TYT a little bit and meeting everyone. And TYT was there, and Anna was there, and she was frustrated because she hadn't been booked on many appearances on camera, and instead a panel of men mostly clogged up the day. I stood next to her and told her how annoying that was, and just tried to build her up in solidarity. Then in 2019, we went out to lunch in Los Angeles at an awesome spot that she knew of. And Anna confided to me that she was frustrated about leadership at TYT. How she wasn't involved in day-to-day decision-making, and how Cenk viewed her more as a kid sister rather than a co-equal partner. And at the time, she wanted to branch out on her own and do videos on a new channel. I implored her at that moment to stay. I said that it's always women that tend to walk away from organizations, even when they've helped build them up to the point that they're at.
And it's always women that will stab other women's ass in the back. Let me add that part to it. But this, I think her video, what I notice is a lot of focus on Anna and not so much on Cenk Uygur. And Cenk Uygur is the one that decided to ultimately fire her. And I'm going to say this again. I think from her perspective, she kind of probably saw it as though as a commentator, she should be able to not be censored and she should have that type of freedom. To that, I agree. I think from Cenk's perspective, he's kind of like, I'm your boss. This is my business. This is my company. And you're going around and you're making personal attacks about me. That's bad for business. That I totally also understand. But when you put the two together, ultimately what you have is that you end up in this situation when the people who are working for the company don't own a piece of the company. If TYT were a worker co-op, for example, this situation probably could have been completely avoided. Or if Francesca were fired, she would have left with the portion, of her earnings. She would still have some ownership in the company, but it's not a worker cooperative. And this is why I do push for that. This is the thing about when you work for someone else, they always have the upper hand. And everybody may be buddy and chummy with each other after work and all that kind of stuff. And it sounds like they were kind of cool with each other, like maybe even, friendly, not just, coworkers and stuff. But people will stab you in the back, especially if it gets in the way of their career goals. People have no problem doing that. I told you guys 9 times out of 10, most people who stab other women in the back in the workplace are other women. People may not want to say it out loud, but it's true. I trust a dude in the workplace before I would trust a chick. Just saying, especially if you're competing for a top position and let's say they're looking to maybe have a female in that position and, it's both of you competing for that, get ready. But it's a company, you guys. TYT's a company. And so that's something people need to keep in mind. I hear people talking about this, and the way that they're talking about it is like, oh my God, what's happening to them? They're doing this, they're doing that, da da da. It's a business first. So when people are like, it's the home of the progressives, no, it was a business first. It was a company first. And since he's the business owner, he's going to do what he feels is best for that company. I don't even know how long have I been talking about this. My whole thing is this. This could have been fixed if TYT was a worker co-op. Let this really be a lesson. Like I'm telling you guys, man, if TYT was a worker co-op, she would still have a share in the company. But what is wrong? Some men stab some other men in the back too. Yeah, that's true. That is true. But I think people expected me to be on one side or the other. I understand where both sides are coming from, but also at the end of the day, that is your boss. So they can fire you with or without. In Massachusetts, I know when I worked at Boston University, they told us this during orientation. At Boston University, they made it very clear to you that you can be fired from Boston University without reason. They don't have to give a reason why they fire you. Something to think about, right? Now, the solution to all that, again, like I said, is worker cooperatives. That's what I say. And I know some people are really into unionizing. Union's great too, but apparently TYT has shut that down at one point. That's why I say worker co-ops. That's really the way to go, in my opinion. But she'll be fine. She'll probably gain like 10,000, 15,000 subs because this happened. That's the pattern I've seen over the years. But yeah, I don't know, dude. I don't know. Crazy times. Can we see the poll? Let's put the poll. I'm curious to see what people said. Oh my God, this is so close. Okay, it's 1,315 votes. Oh, now it's going up. Who's voting right now? I know some of you are voting now. Okay, do you agree with Jink firing Francesca? This is very close. 30% said yes, 31% said no, and 39% of you said, I'm still not sure. Interesting. Well, that is interesting. Nothing's permanent, guys. Nothing is permanent. Let me go to the super chats. Thank you, Miss Ritchie. The Club of Rome proposed dividing the world into 10 kingdoms in 1974. Region 1 is a merger of USA, Canada, and Greenland. Interesting. Thank you, Roger. WTH happened with Jess Hilarious and BF Club. It's a long story. I'll explain it later. But yeah, it's a different situation. Be Easy said Francesca is not a victim. Both sides were acting goofy. M Logic was hoping Anna would do her own thing, try to figure her stuff out. Patrick, to be fair, they came a long way, but didn't have a plan to keep the ideology intact. That's a good point, Patrick. That's a good point. Thank you, Baron. The U.S. goes after every country possible, yet have the guts to say Putin has expansionist ambitions. Tell him, Baron. Tell him. V Cubed. Jink contracts content. She's not an employee. He was also, well, he got fired. She was contracting. He's still working for them. He also opposed staff unionizing. I've covered that many years ago, multiple times. He's against anyone defending woke, opposes anyone who says he shouldn't platform bigots, racists, and haters. I've covered that as well. Panak says Francesca is ideological and did not realize for Jink it's about the grift. And so this is why I keep saying it's a business. So keep that in mind. Thank you, JJ. Hot damn, she went wild on his peach. Oh, is that supposed to be a butt? Guys, I'm terrible with like the emoji stuff. Like just I'm like a boomer with like abbreviations and like emojis. Thank you, Abdul. That's why I compared what happened on the Breakfast Club. Oh, and what happened on TYT. They both businesses. Just hilarious embarrassed the Breakfast Club on Instagram, and Francesca embarrassed TYT on her show. I see what you're saying, Abdul. Thank you. Miranda says TYT used to do group chats in bars with drinks during the 2016 primary. Those were pretty good. Thank you, Mr. Zong. Deep Truth Seekers, free PDF books. Masters and the Path by C.W. Leadbeater, plus any by Alice Bailey, Annie Besant, Helena Blavatsky, Benjamin Cream, and Helena Roerich. Thank you, Jamal. Think back to Jordan Sheraton. The employment issues are known, but her issue arose when Cenk and Anna shifted their position. They're in a cult. Ah, that's a good point, Jamal. That's a good point. But you're right. Jordan talked about the employment issues back in the day. Thank you, Courtney. I don't blame Cenk. Call me a bee in front of the world and you're my employee. I would have fired her too. I'm late tuning in. Hi, everyone. Hello, Courtney. Thank you, New York Varsity. I can criticize Mitch McConnell all day, but he did not run on Medicare for all. Sabrina Salvati, Sabs, this woman would hate you. Yeah, it's true. He didn't run on Medicare for all. Thank you, Skylar. Sometimes you got to burn a bridge, but in the last year or so, Benny Trans, Ravana Woman, Mondale Black, Fran Asian have all quit and fired. Yep. Josie, put that on your board, Sabby. Always have your own shit. Hey, maybe that'll be my theme for the next show. Always have your own every time, man. Every time. Thank you, Courtney. Make that a t-shirt. I don't trust these hoes. Hashtag Sab 2025. Oh my God. Thank you, Justin. I know of at least one other more respected leftist organization that also doesn't support reparations for ADOS. I'm not going to name the name, but you know who I'm talking about, Sabby. I don't even know if we would even consider that to be a leftist organization, though. I don't like a worker. I guess leftist. I guess. I don't know. I'm kind of picky about the term leftist now. Thank you, New York. Man's secret. Once we've dated a woman who is crazy, from that point to the day we know it when we see it. Something wrong with this one. Cray. And thank you for this, Justin. The same org I mentioned earlier is also not interested in worker co-ops, but claims to be socialist. Isn't that bizarre? Yeah, that is very strange. Thank you, Kelly. Sabby, who's voting right now? Me. And thank you, Michael. Sabs, did you see the case Kobe had with Novartis 2 days before he was killed? They were putting opioids in any energy drinks. Please cover this. I did not see that. I'll have to look into that. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for hanging out with me on a Sunday, fun day. I am now heading out. I hope you guys have a great evening. I'll see you live on Tuesday night. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.